episode of Bob the Sign Man. It's been a while since I've made a video. I've been busy. I moved from a fully furnished house into another fully furnished house, and it's been total mayhem. Moved around Christmas time, started moving around Christmas time. Don't ever do that. Nothing good ever comes of that. Anyways, so let's jump into an exciting episode here. I'm always trying to figure out a better way to kind of come up with a new idea on how to do something. I had a little problem with street signs. We do 36, 42, and 48, 9 inches wide. And sometimes going through the roller, I have little problems with it. So I thought, well, why don't I lay them out lengthwise? I have better luck doing a big piece of overlay on top of a sign blank, like the 36-inch signs. Do them no problem, never any problem. It's those narrow ones that can move around on you and turns into a mess. So I thought, well, let me try doing 4 at a time, see how it turns out. And it all starts with proper layout. Let's jump into this exciting episode. Okay, what we're going to have to do is we're going to start off with, these are 36-inch blanks. They are 0.125. They're pretty rigid. They don't flex at all. So we want to lay out 4 of them, or make 4 of them. So what I did was I cut 8 strips that are going to cover these. And the reason there's 8 strips is because there's going to be a street name sign on both sides. So let's get covering one side of them first. I'll show you. I'll just do one real quick here. I'm sure you've seen some of my other videos on how we cover these. There's different ways you can do this. I prefer like these smaller ones to turn them upside down like this. And then I can easily just flip them back over and run them over. That's one way you can do it. Another way some people do it, and they've commented on some of my videos, is why do I do it like that? When some people will cover their blank this side up like this, run it through your roller, and then you just have to peel back this side. Tuck it under, roll it, flip it back over, and then roll it back through. So there's 2 ways, my way and the other way. The result is the same. I guess it's like putting on your socks and your shoes. Some people put on both socks and then both shoes. Well, I put on a sock and a shoe, and the end result is the socks are on first and the shoes are on last. As long as we got there, we're okay. I'll continue with these, and I'll be back to show you a secret little tip on how to cover the other side without damaging this side. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Okay, now that I have the one side covered, I'll show you just a quick little bit on how I trim these. I always have a sharp razor blade. I always hang it over the edge of my table. Sharp razor blades are the key. And you just run it along the edge, and you'll trim off your waist. Your idea is when you cut these things is you want to leave your waist to the least amount that you can leave it at, and that's about it right there. And when you cut these, you want to cut it, you want to angle your blade in, not a 45-degree angle, but a slight angle in there, and it'll give you a good cut along the edge. Around at that corner, I'm going to finish off this straight edge. And if you do get off a little bit, you can just go trim it. So it's important to keep these trimmed nice and close to the blank. It'll help when we lay out all 4 at once. Okay, now that I have all 4 of these covered on one side, normally what I do is I put the street name sign on it, and then I will leave the transfer tape on, then I'll cover the other side. But what happens when you roll this already sheeted diamond grade material over the steel roller that's on the bottom. The steel roller on the bottom, and then you have the rubber roller on top. It has a tendency, if there's any little nicks or anything in the steel roller, it'll leave an impression, and not a good impression, on the sign blank. So what I've come up with this little way is I took an old sheet that I had, and I covered it with diamond grade material. You don't necessarily have to use diamond grade material. I just had a piece that I had cut, and it had some serious scratches in it. It was the one left over from the end of the roll. Anyway, so now what I do is when I roll them through the roller, is I put the two diamond grade materials on top of each other, and so when I roll it through the steel roller, see, it's going to make contact with the diamond grade, and it's not going to roll on that roller and kind of mess it up a little bit. So now what I'll do is I'll cover the other side, just like I have before. I do my style, I like it like this better. Okay, then I'll flip it upside down. Get you the steel roller. And then when I that side, this side remains fully protected. I'll go ahead and trim all these up, and we'll be right back for the layout. Okay, another thing you want to be careful when you're trimming the other side that already has the diamond grade on, don't make any sudden movements turning it on the bare table that I have here. So I push my covered one out, and instead of sliding them around, I pick them up and gently set them down. So I'm not sliding them around on the table. I'll do, try to protect this both sides as easy as you can. The sign man's motto is, don't you? Perfect is just going to have to be good enough for today. So I want to make sure that everything is perfect on each one of these. Okay, now that I have my street signs laid out and cut out on my plotter cutter, I'm going to go ahead and remove the areas that aren't needed any longer. What I'll do is I'll weed these all out, and then I'm going to tape them. And I'm going to leave them all intact. I'm not going to cut them off of this film yet until I'm done. That way they'll all be laid out perfect. Okay, what I'm going to do, since these are covered on both sides, okay, I'm going to lay them on my covered sign blank that I have. And make sure whenever you're doing this, that whatever sign blank you have, I have a couple different sizes. These are 36-inch blanks, and I'm using a 42-inch blank. So they'll fit just perfect. So I want to make sure that they're all aligned perfectly on this edge, and that they're all touching together here. And then what's going to happen is these will go over the top. I don't have these transfer tape on now, but I'll show you up close what this is going to look like. Okay, so when these are finished and they're rolled out, what's going to happen is I'm going to line this up perfect. Okay, and see how these all line up? I kept the 1 inch in between them when I laid them out, because there's a 1/2 inch border between each one of these. Okay, so these are all laid out perfect. Might have to go up a little bit. So once I have the transfer tape on, I'm going to roll these all out onto one. We'll take a look at that in a second, see what happens. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the transfer tape on these. Depending on which sign you're making and what sign I'm doing, it depends on how I put my transfer tape on. But with these, there's a lot of this green area, the EC film, and it has a tendency, if you can create bubbles and pockets if you don't do it right, and then when you put it on your final sign, you might get little air bubbles under it. That's the last thing you want. So your preparation is always the crucial and critical. I have these grid lines on my table, and I'm going to try to keep it straight as I can on the grid lines. Now I have this 36-inch, and I'm just going to pull it out. Okay, and then what I do is I pull out enough, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay it on the top here. and just let it kind of come down where it wants to come down. Okay, then I have this, I don't know, it's about a 12-inch plastic squeegee. All I'm going to do is I'm not even applying any pressure. I'm just letting it, see, I'm just resting it on the top and making sure that I get a little contact with the design down here. I don't need a whole lot of contact. I want to make sure that nothing's not gonna trap in any air bubbles or anything like that. And on some of the signs, I'll work it out, but not on these. Not on the street signs. I have a razor blade. Okay, I'll cut off the transfer tape. I take a pair of scissors and I'm going to trim off this area where the transfer tape overlapped my design here. And I just want to make sure I get all those little sticky edges off. And these edges too, on the, I guess you would call it the top and bottom. I want to trim it fairly close to my design so I don't have a whole lot hanging over the edges. Okay. Next, I'm going to double check these and make sure that I have them all lined up perfect how I want them. So I have them all lined up on this straight edge, and the top and the bottom is all lined up straight, so everything's straight here. So now when I put my design on top, what I'm going to do then is just kind of eyeball these and make sure that I have my 1/2-inch border around there. And I'll just verify it with a little ruler. So now that I'm laid out perfect here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it under. Now remember, we didn't have these worked out yet, so what we're going to do is I'm going to push it about, not quite halfway, maybe 1/3 of the way still sticking out. I'm going to drop my roller. I roll these at about 95 pounds, between anywhere 85, 95. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it out. You can hear the air squishing out of those, okay? And I'll roll it back the other way. I'll go back one more time. Make sure all those ends are flattened out. Okay, as you can see, I got a nice coverage. Everything is nice and flat. There's no air bubbles under it. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll peel this layer back. And I'll cut off the plastic. Okay, here's my last chance to check it out, to make sure that I have no little bubbles under here or anything, and there's no piece of lint on anywhere, because I don't want to create any air pockets underneath or any areas where there's going to be a chance of a piece of dust or lint getting out of there. Now what I'm going to do is I roll them and I go really slow so I get a good coverage. If you go too fast, you might trap some air in there, but easy does it. Okay, and then try not to touch your green EC. You'll leave fingerprints in it. You want to come all the way off the edge. Back on. Then we're going to do the other half. We're just going to peel it away. And also check it out. I see a piece of lint over there already, so I'm going to just knock it off. And I'm going to finish rolling the other side. See, there's a little space in between here, so I'll just rest the finger there. So nice and easy. Roll it one more time. Okay, as you can see, we have nice coverage. Everything looks good. There's no air bubbles or air pockets I can see under there at all. So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip these over. Now we're ready to put on the second side. They're flipped over. Just verify. You got Keys Avenue on the bottom. Just make sure that you have them right, and somehow you don't flip them upside down, because not only will you ruin that side, you'll ruin every one of them. They'll be upside down and on the wrong name. So it's critical to make sure that you get the same way. So I have Keys on this side, Toy on the Barada Sunset. Okay, same thing as before. We're going to lay this out. We're going to eyeball it first. See how good the old Signman's eyes are. So it's right on. It's a 1/2 inch everywhere. 1/2 inch. Well, maybe not quite here. We're gonna have to bump this up a little bit. You know what we say, perfect's gonna have to be good enough for today. And we're 1/2 inch. So lots happened in the last 2 months for me. I haven't made any videos in a while. I moved. Don't ever move at Christmas. What idiot moves at Christmas? That would be me. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set this down and we're gonna roll this out nice and easy. You can hear the popping. It's pushing out all the air bubbles and laying everything down straight. Now, like I said, I go about, leave a third out there. Pull this back. And I'm going to trim off this film. This was the bottom side of the green, and the transfer tape is going to apply. The top of the design sticks to the transfer tape. Now we're going to roll it out, make sure everything's clean. I've wiped it off. And this part here, it's very critical to go slow. Okay, go nice and slow. There's no hurry. You don't want to ruin 4 at a time. Roll off the edge, and we'll roll it back again. All right, let's unmask these and see how they turned out. Like I said, this white spot is where eventually the logo is going to be. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, that's what I like to see. It's absolutely flawless. There's not an air bubble. There's nothing under there. No foreign matters. One little tiny dust speck right there. That's just gonna, that'll be all right. Okay, now I'm gonna flip them back over on my covered design here. Like I said, there could be little snags on this table, and we don't want to snag the signs. Let's see how this works out. Also, you want to make sure when you lay out these 4 at a time that you have the same size thickness. These are 1.25s and they're all brand new, so it's the same thickness. If you use signs that are recycled, one might be a little different than the other, so you're going to have to watch it if you try to lay out 4 at a time. So we have our keys. Toy on, the Barada, and Sunset Drive. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll put the logos in these, and you can see that the dots on each side, that's level. And I cut these are 6 inch. I cut these out at 6.5, so we'll have like a 1/4 inch all the way around. And we just kind of eyeball it and center it. And we'll make sure that it remains in good contact. Let me finish one off here completely. Okay, well there you have it. 4 at a time. I'm not necessarily saying that that's the most efficient way to do it, but the results turn out much better. When I try to do a single sign at a time, you've seen how I roll them through one at a time. It kind of turns out to be not the best situation. So if you have to make two at a time, you can lay out two at a time. It seems like when you try to lay out these signs one at a time, there's too much variable, and it seems like they just mess up on me all the time. So this is my new way of doing, multiple signs at a time. Works out pretty good. So there's another little tip on how I do my street signs. There's all kinds of the ways you can do stuff, and like I said, take your time doing this, because not only will you mess up one, you'll mess up four at a time. Make sure that they're face the right direction and everything, and just take your time, and you'll work through it. And whenever you're in trouble, that's right, just turn to the sign man. As always, thanks for watching.